Return of the east side, nigga Tray Deee.
And the window shattered. And so I grabbed Snoop and threw him on the floor, and I'm like, And so I grabbed Snoop and threw him on the floor, and I'm like, they shoot.
Big Tray Deee is the godfather of Hollywood, a hip-hop royal figure, a platinum group member, a collaborator with Dr. Dre, and a respected OG insane Crip whose credibility has never been questioned. A powerful name standing shoulder to shoulder with Snoop Dogg. But Tray Deee did not only carry glory on his shoulders, he also bore tragic shadows. A shooting incident nearly pushed him toward a sentence of 122 years in prison. A money dispute threw a career at its peak into a black hole. And an artist whose own catchphrase, once chanted by millions, ultimately turned him into a lonely man. How does someone with that level of influence become the forgotten giant of hip-hop, who had enough power to erase Big Tray Deee from this history? Buckle up. Because what is about to be dissected here is far worse than anything you ever imagined. Big Tray Deee, a child raised amid iron bars and gunfire. Big Tray Deee was once just Tracy Lamar Davis, a boy growing up on the dangerous streets of Long Beach, California. Born on April 27, 1966, Tray Deee was raised in an environment where loyalty, reputation, and survival were not theories, but matters of life and death. He was the youngest of 6 siblings raised by a single mother who moved the entire family from St. Louis to California in hopes of a better life. But Long Beach did not welcome them with opportunity. It welcomed them with pressure. He grew up in a space where police presence was overwhelming a shared reality in poor neighborhoods. Police patrolled poor areas more than rich ones. Why? Because if someone who looked suspicious appeared in a wealthy area, residents would immediately call the police. It was also a tactic of intimidation. We are here. We are watching you. Do not move. Do not even breathe the wrong way. To white Americans, the police are the people who stop my house from getting robbed at night. In their minds, how could anyone possibly hate the police like that? During that time, his family tried to teach him to stay on the right path. His mother tried to keep her children within boundaries, believing education could be a safety fence. But school quickly turned into a battlefield. Tray Deee could not tolerate being watched, controlled, and ordered around. In 3rd grade, he was expelled for fighting with a teacher. The door to education closed early, and it never reopened. In the years that followed, Tray Deee grew up on the margins. Robbery, fights, carrying weapons, even becoming a full-fledged drug dealer. And like an unwritten law of those streets, once he chose that path, he stood directly against the law. Illegal actions soon sent Tray Deee into juvenile detention facilities, including Los Padrinos Juvenile Hall in Downey, California, a place labeled as rehabilitation. It was in that space that hip-hop saved Big Tray Dee's spirit. At Los Padrinos, he heard rappers' delight for the first time. The music hit him instantly. At that time, Long Beach was not yet recognized in hip-hop. It had no name, no icon. But to Tray Deee, that did not matter. He spent hours locked up learning, thinking, writing rap lyrics, calculating, doing whatever it took to keep his mind intact. Rap was not a career then. It was more like a superhero, something that only appeared when everything else had failed. Unlike today, when anyone can upload a terrible rap track online and disappear into a sea of sound, that era was completely different. Rap was as rare as gold. Rappers were as rare as people with special powers, and every voice carried weight. It was a special time to enter hip-hop to learn to sit at the same table with people who carried real fire. Exhibit, Chingy, Doggy Style Angels, L.A., Angels of King Lou, Ruffy. And during those years, one name began pushing him to take rap seriously: Snoop Dogg. To a young Tray Deee, Snoop was the coolest person in the world. Before Snoop, Long Beach had no artist truly pursuing rap seriously. Everyone rapped casually at school or around the neighborhood. Tray Deee and his half-dead friend freestyled over EPMD beats. But no one could truly push Long Beach like Snoop did. And after being released, he committed himself fully to rap. A path leading straight to what hip-hop had long promised: mansions, luxury cars, gold, and million-dollar contracts. And you can see the proof today. Tray Deee was truly born to stand in that world. But that light was also where every mistake was magnified tenfold. And in that cold spotlight, the nightmare America would never forget was already waiting. The year 2003. Career beginnings. Golden opportunity or sugar-coated trap. Tray Deee was an unusual name, and when he held the mic, he never left the street code behind. He brought it directly into the art-treating rap like a form of currency exchange. The rules were clear. Words had to have value. Respect had to be earned through blood, sweat, and loyalty. The motto was simple: we want everything, nothing gets handed back. But the same street code that built his reputation quietly placed him on a tragic trajectory where compromise no longer existed. After his release, Tray Deee landed what many called a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He first met Snoop Dogg through a friend. No stage, no contract, no spotlight, just a raw street moment. Tray Deee freestyled on the spot. And that was enough. Snoop Dogg and Corrupt immediately wanted to work with him. No long discussions, no second audition. Yet in that moment, Tray Deee was the most cautious person in the room. He had just come out of prison. He was too familiar with smooth promises, too aware of being sold a dream that never gets delivered. To Tray Deee at that time, big stars were not symbols. They were question marks. He doubted everything. He feared this was another game where poor people put in faith while rich people collected profit. Only after friends convinced him that Snoop Dogg was genuinely serious did Tray Deee agree to connect. From there, he became one of Snoop Dogg's closest and most trusted associates during the Death Row Records era. Tray Deee first appeared on the song 21 Jump Street on the Murder Was the Case soundtrack in 1994. Then came Dog Food and Tha Dogfather. He was not just a feature, he became a core member of Tha East Sidaz. Everything looked like a dream finally taking shape. But that dream cracked the moment money entered the room. Despite the group earning millions in revenue, Tray Deee and Goldie Locke received only scraps. According to them, the man who brought them to the top of the West Coast was also the one holding back most of the rewards. The initial advance was only $200,000 for the entire group, not per person. A figure they believed represented only a small fraction of what the group could and should have earned. After platinum and gold albums, the total amount they claimed to have received was around $240,000, along with a platinum chain offered as a calming gesture. Tray Dee's frustration could no longer be hidden. According to him, the accounting firm hired by the group concluded that each member could have received roughly $1 million for their contributions. That number poured fuel on the fire. Tray Deee stated that while Snoop Dogg could earn $5,000 to $10,000 just to write a verse or appear on a song, then make $1 to $3 million from that same track, people like him in Tha East Sidaz were not being compensated fairly for their work. That gap was not just about money. To Tray Deee, it was humiliation. He said he spent 2 years trying to resolve the issue peacefully. 2 years of negotiations, 2 years of waiting, 2 years believing everything could be handled behind closed doors. But according to Tray Deee, Snoop Dogg and his team were unwilling to resolve it. Tray Deee even went straight onto live interviews. He called them scoundrels, opportunists, people who saw the truth but hid behind closed doors. Fake images with no foundation like soulless characters from Charlie Brown's Peanuts. He also accused Snoop Dogg of being an unfaithful husband, claiming money was used to support extramarital relationships. And perhaps with everything going on, Snoop was surely already a millionaire. But if you dared to say he was doing something wrong according to Tray Deee, what you got was $50 and security escorting you out the door. Payments continued to be denied. Tensions escalated daily. And when every legal and negotiation path was blocked, Tray Deee decided to confront Snoop Dogg personally at his home to resolve the financial dispute. A decision that would later place him at risk of facing a sentence of up to 122 years in prison. The 2003 shooting. Unrevealed details. After 2 years of failed negotiations, Big Tray Deee reached a decision that he later admitted was the most dangerous line he ever crossed in his life. According to his account, he decided to personally confront Snoop Dogg at his private residence to put an end to the money dispute once and for all. No lawyers, no intermediaries, no spotlight. Just two men carrying two completely different value systems. Tray Deee said he came to demand truth about what he believed he was owed. According to him, Snoop Dogg refused to face him. He ran out of the house and jumped into a pickup truck. A bodyguard tried to tell Snoop to come back. Tray Deee said he only said this settled the numbers and pay my share. But Snoop Dogg chose to leave. No argument, no negotiation, no confrontation. The next day, violence erupted. According to Tray Deee, the other side fired first and he returned fire. A single shooting was enough to collapse a fragile alliance between two Crip sets, something that had once maintained a balance of power in an already sensitive area. But from that moment on, the story split in two. One version told through memory, one version written in black ink inside court records. According to reports by the Los Angeles Times and All Hip Hop in November 2003, Big Tray Deee was arrested for firing shots outside an unnamed business in Long Beach. Official court records stated that he fired into a vehicle with two people inside. No one was injured. But that detail did not lessen the charge. A few hours after the shooting was reported, Tray Deee was arrested at his home in Fontana on charges of assault with a deadly weapon. When police questioned Snoop Dogg about the incident, he gave a brief response, "I know nothing." He did not mention Tray Deee. He did not confirm any conflict. He did not step forward to defend anyone. To the legal system, that silence carried great weight. To Tray Deee, it felt like another door slamming shut. Prosecutors initially sought a sentence of up to 122 years in prison, a number that sounded like life imprisonment rewritten in mathematics. Gang-related charges alone were enough to push the sentence to 50 years. What do you think 122 years in prison? For a shooting where no one was injured? Have you ever wondered whether American law is too harsh in cases like this? Or whether the issue is not the bullet, but the person behind the gun? Under California, criminal law firing into a vehicle with people inside is classified as an extremely dangerous act, nearly equivalent to attempted murder. No one being injured is considered fortunate. But the law does not wait for luck to determine sentencing. All it needs is gunfire, people inside the vehicle, and the potential for deadly harm. That is enough. The charge remains severe regardless of the actual outcome. Tray Deee also said they reopened his entire record going back to 1977. 7 to 8 prison terms, 6 involving firearms, plus drugs. He rapped about crime. And because of that, they did not believe self-defense. According to him, they first offered 19 years, then reduced it to 16, finally 12. His lawyer said it plainly, either take this deal or go to court tomorrow. Tray Deee chose to accept 12 years in prison for attempted murder, and his career was cut off at its peak. That sentence abruptly ended his career, a career built on both street credibility and musical success, right at its highest point. Before prison, Tray Deee was known as a conflict handler, sometimes an enforcer, sometimes a mediator, sometimes a guardian of the street code. In the eyes of the West Coast, he was a true OG. His words carried weight. Loyalty was absolute. That reputation was built through many tense situations that not everyone dared to step into. But when a gangster becomes too famous, that very reputation becomes a problem. Tray Deee once compared it to Nicky Barnes making the cover of the New York Times, or John Gotti becoming a media icon. No one wants that level of exposure. But when you are young, everyone dreams of being respected, feared, and welcomed with open doors. Only later in life did Tray Deee realize that the real dream was simply to have money take care of family, and live without having to look over your shoulder at every step. The year 2003 was not just a case. It was the moment when street code collided head-on with the system. And the system always wins. Fabricated rumors and inflated stories. Before they could no longer stand the sight of each other in 2003, there was once a very different period between them. Not hostility, but closeness, collaboration, and sharing the same stage, the same belief that everything could still be resolved. Precisely because that period once existed, what happened later became easier to distort. When a once close relationship collapses, memory no longer stays still. It begins to protect itself, explain itself, rewrite itself. And in the world of hip-hop, where the line between real experience and public image is already fragile, those fragments of memory can easily be inflated into legend. After 2003, the story of Big Tray Deee was not told only through court records. It was also told through YouTube, through clipped interviews, through headline-grabbing videos. From there, a series of stories emerged with no paper trail yet spreading faster than any sentence. They did not appear at the same time. They did not happen in the same context. But when placed side by side, they created the feeling of a seamless chain of destiny, where Tray Deee was always the hunted one. The first story was the so-called sniper attack on the set of New York, New York. According to Tray Deee in some later interviews, there was once a shot fired from a very long distance that shattered the glass of a trailer while he was inside with Snoop Dogg. Tray Deee said he immediately pulled Snoop down to the floor. The story sounded like a movie scene, an invisible sniper, a life or death moment, a heroic reflex. But the problem was, there was no police record confirming the event. No media reports at the time, no production reports, no independent witnesses. That does not mean Tray Deee made it up, but it shows something more dangerous. Personal memory, especially when retold years later, can become cinematic without the storyteller realizing it. In environments shaped by prolonged violence, the brain tends to exaggerate threats to rationalize emotion. A loud noise can become a gunshot. A shattered window can become a sniper. And once that story is uploaded to YouTube, it is no longer memory. It becomes content. Another story that was long misreported involved an incident at a Snoop Dogg party. For years, rumors circulated that Tray Deee was beaten by Snoop himself and thrown into a swimming pool. The story was repeated with absolute certainty, as if it were an obvious truth. But Tray Deee later corrected it himself. He stated clearly that Snoop did not hit him. The person responsible was someone else. He was not knocked out. He was simply pushed down during a chaotic moment. What matters is not whether there was conflict at the party. It is how the story was redirected. From a personal altercation in a crowded space, it was transformed into a symbol of betrayal between two major names. And when that false story is repeated enough times, it begins to sound true. Not because there is evidence, but because it fits the script audiences have grown used to. Then came the rumor of being banned from a platform called All Eyes. This claim appeared much later, many years after Tray Deee had already been released from prison. The issue is that no one can clearly identify what All Eyes actually is: a media platform, an online community, or simply a vague label for some space on social media. There was no official announcement, no public decision, no confirmed reason. Everything existed only as speculation. But in the YouTube era, that is enough. A vague detail, a familiar name, an unanswered question, and a new story is born. Banned for telling the truth, silenced for being too direct, removed from the game. These patterns are so familiar that audiences believe them without verification. The danger does not lie in any single rumor. It lies in how they are blended across time. Stories that happened before 2003, accounts that only appeared after prison, speculation born in the social media era. All of it is bundled together and told as a continuous cause and effect chain, when in reality they do not share the same context, the same level of verification, or the same legal nature. When Sniper Party and All Eyes are placed alongside the 2003 shooting, they create the illusion that Big Tray Deee has always lived in a state of being hunted. But that illusion is created by storytelling, not by records. The 2003 case is the only event with clear legal documentation. Everything else exists in the gray zone of memory and media. Big Tray Deee is a man with a complex life, many real conflicts, many real mistakes. But for that very reason, he is also fertile ground for legend. In the world of hip-hop, where gangster imagery is often glorified, any story involving violence or betrayal is easier to believe than the silence of official records. And the final question is not whether these rumors are true or false. It is this: after hearing them so many times, do we still remember that they were never proven? That is how a real person becomes obscured by inflated stories. And that is why, with Big Tray Deee, his story must always be told with the highest level of caution. When hip-hop is no longer an escape. 12 years in prison did not only take away Big Tray Dee's freedom, it took away the exact moment an artist like him needed most: the golden era of West Coast hip-hop. Not when he was outdated, not when he had run out of ideas, but when his credibility, reputation, and street weight had finally matured enough to enter history. California prison is not a place for reflection the way people like to romanticize it. It is not a space to pay the price and start over. It is a time grinder, a system designed to let the outside world keep moving while you are locked in place, day after day with no climax, no explosive moment. Just calendars being torn away while your name slowly fades from collective memory. Hip-hop once saved Tray Deee when he was a child locked in juvenile detention. Back then, rap was like oxygen. It kept his mind from breaking apart. But 12 years later, when he entered prison as an OG hip-hop, no longer had the power to do that. Not because he was weaker, but because the system this time was far bigger. An incarcerated OG is no longer a romantic story. He is no longer a child who needs saving. He becomes a person filed away, boxed in by a criminal record, and cut off from a cultural current that shifts every day. While Tray Deee was behind bars, West Coast hip-hop changed shifts. New names emerged. New voices took over the airwaves. The rules changed, from street credibility to views, from words carrying weight to content built to spread. No one held a seat for him. No one said that when Tray Deee came back, the stage would still be his. The music world has no pause button. It does not wait for anyone to finish a sentence before moving on. The long silence was the most frightening part. No public beef, no diss tracks. No one attacked him to keep him in the conversation. And no one mentioned him to defend him. Tray Deee was not defeated. He was ignored. In popular culture, that is a punishment heavier than any prison sentence. An artist can survive scandal. But surviving erasure is far harder. The people who once shared the stage with him kept moving forward. They signed new deals. They appeared on magazine covers. They became symbols of a new era. No one looked back. Not because of betrayal, but because the machine does not allow stopping. And Tray Deee, locked inside a separated system, could only watch from a distance as the world that once belonged to him drifted away piece by piece. Prison now felt like a permanent waiting room. But not a waiting room to step onto a stage. A waiting room where fame slowly dies. No explosive moments, no applause, just erosion. With every passing year, his name lost another layer of meaning. Stories about him became distant history to a new generation. And in a culture obsessed with the new, the past has no way to defend itself. The bitter truth is that Tray Deee did not disappear because he lacked talent. He disappeared because he was not present. Hip-hop is a culture of presence. You have to show up. You have to be seen. You have to be heard. An OG locked away for 12 years is effectively stripped of the right to exist within that current, not through an official declaration, but through prolonged silence. Throughout that time, Tray Deee could not reposition himself. He could not respond to what was being written about him. He could not join the conversation to tell his own story. Everything about him was frozen at the moment of his arrest, while the outside world continuously rewrote hip-hop history in ways that no longer left space for him. And that was the moment hip-hop failed, not because it betrayed Tray Deee, but because it had no mechanism to hold on to those locked away by the system. This culture talks endlessly about truth, but when an OG disappears behind bars, it chooses silence, not out of malice, but because that truth no longer generates profit views or new stories. While Tray Deee sat in a cell, no one debated whether he was right or wrong. No one analyzed his legacy. No one questioned the cost of street code when it collides with the system. He was pushed out of the conversation. And in hip-hop, that means being erased from the present. So the question left hanging here is cold and uncomfortable. If hip-hop always claims to be the voice of truth, then why does it fall silent when an OG disappears behind bars? And what does that silence reveal about how this culture treats those who once laid its foundation? The world does not wait for you to return. Big Tray Deee was released in 2014, but the hip-hop he once knew had died long before. Not because it was banned, not because it was betrayed, but because time had turned the page without asking those left behind. When the prison gates opened, what greeted him was not bright lights or cheers. It was a silence difficult to name. Hip-hop had changed shape while he was locked away. Back then, rap was street code. Every line carried the weight of an oath. Credibility was not measured in streams, but in whether you lived what you said. A strong verse could save a reputation. One mistake could end everything. But when Tray Deee stepped out, rap had become a content economy. Release cycles moved faster than breathing. Views determined value. Algorithms chose winners. Street code did not disappear. It was simply pushed to the margins, replaced by numbers running across screens. Death Row was no longer a center of power. The old structures that once shaped the West Coast had collapsed. No more patronage systems. No more figures staking their credibility on a voice. Familiar rules vanished. And with them went the place of OGs who once lived and died by every word. Tray Deee returned to a world with no frame left to place him in. He was not banned. He simply no longer fit the new picture. From a respected OG Tray, Deee became a name that needs explaining. Every appearance pulled him backward instead of forward. Back to 2003. Back to prison. Back to old stories. He was not hated. He was no longer needed. In an attention economy, indifference is the harshest sentence. No new scandal to debate. No new hit to argue over. No reason for algorithms to pull him back into view. The generational divide was brutally clear. Rap before 2000 was about credibility. Rap after 2010 was about views. Back then, people listened to understand who you were. Now people scroll to decide whether to stop. Tray Deee did not lack skill. He lacked what the new era demanded: constant output shock value and compatibility with fast consumption. He stayed standing in the same place. But hip-hop had become a city with a new map. Roads that once led to the center now ended in dead ends. Street signs vanished. And newcomers had no idea those places ever existed. That sense of displacement was not loud. It simmered quietly. Bitter in the way of those who understand they did not lose the old battle, but were never invited to the new game. Big Tray Deee did not collapse after his release. He stood firm. But standing firm in a space that no longer has room for you is a kind of failure few people talk about. And the question remains unanswered and unnecessary to resolve immediately. Where do you return to when the place that once felt like home has been completely rebuilt? Big Tray Deee does not need to be mythologized, but he deserves to be remembered correctly. Remembered as an OG who lived truthfully by his street code, paid a heavy price for those choices, and became proof of a cold reality in hip-hop as in life. Not everyone who survives the storm still has a place when the sky clears. And sometimes the cruelest thing is not failure, but being passed over by history, as if you never existed at all.
All data, analysis, and commentary in this video are presented based on information available at the time of production. The content is subject to change over time and should not be considered a definitive forecast. There is still so much more to explore: stories of resilience, legacy, and truth. Feel free to dive into some of our top recommended videos now appearing on your screen.